The quaint village of Glenmere nestled between sprawling green hills seemed to exist in a bubble, untouched by time. The townsfolk led simple lives, their biggest concerns being the occasional power outage or a late supply truck. Life was predictable, a soothing monotony that no one wanted to disrupt. But all of that changed one crisp autumn morning when the sky split open. It started with a low hum, a frequency so deep it rattled the bones and made the leaves on the trees quiver. The townsfolk looked up as a dark silhouette emerged from the clouds, a massive, triangular spacecraft that glimmered with alien light. It wasn't just a sight, it was a presence, suffocating and awe-inspiring. The ship hovered silently, casting a shadow over Glenmere that swallowed the sunlight and plunged the village into an eerie twilight. Among the villagers was Mara Lee, a feisty 29-year-old engineer whose unshakable pragmatism often clashed with the more traditional mindsets of her neighbors. Known for fixing everything from tractors to computers, Mara was in the middle of repairing a wind turbine on the outskirts of town when the spacecraft arrived. At her side was her younger brother, Ethan, a 17-year-old dreamer with his head always in the stars and a camera perpetually slung around his neck. "Ethan, are you seeing this?" Mara asked, her voice trembling as she wiped grease from her hands and stared upward. "Are you kidding? This is the coolest thing that's ever happened here!" Ethan exclaimed, already capturing the scene on his camera. But the awe quickly turned to dread. The hum grew louder, morphing into an ear-splitting wail as beams of light shot down from the ship, scanning the town in sweeping arcs. The beams stopped abruptly, locking onto various individuals, including Mara and Ethan. A voice boomed from the ship, deep and mechanical, yet disturbingly human-like. "Subjects identified. Commence initial harvesting." The beams intensified, lifting people into the air. Panic erupted. People screamed, running in every direction as they tried to avoid the light. Mara grabbed Ethan's arm and bolted towards the dense forest bordering Glenmere. "Move, Ethan! Don't look back!" she shouted, her heart pounding. As they ran, a wave of smaller ships emerged from the mothership, descending like predatory birds. These vessels were sleek and insect-like, emitting shrill sounds as they scanned the terrain. Mara and Ethan dove into a thicket just as one of the smaller ships passed overhead. They watched in horror as their neighbors were hoisted into the air and transported aboard the mothership. The quiet town of Glenmere was transformed into a battlefield of flashing lights and desperate cries. Mara gritted her teeth, the gears in her mind already turning. "Ethan, this isn't random," she said. "They knew who to target. This is organized. What do we do?" Ethan's voice wavered, fear evident in his wide eyes. Mara took a deep breath. "We need to find a way to fight back." As the chaos unfolded, another figure emerged on the scene, Professor Elias Grayson, a reclusive astrophysicist who lived on the outskirts of Glenmere. Once celebrated for his groundbreaking research into alien civilizations, he had faded into obscurity after the scientific community ridiculed his theories about a hostile extraterrestrial force preparing to invade Earth. Now, as the sky burned with alien light, Grayson's warnings seemed prophetic. From his observatory, he watched the unfolding nightmare through a telescope, his hands trembling with both fear and vindication. "This is it," he muttered. "The reckoning." Grayson had been preparing for years, stockpiling equipment, and studying ancient texts that hinted at humanity's hidden defenses. He activated a secret radio frequency, broadcasting a distress signal to any military or resistance groups that might be listening. Meanwhile, Mara and Ethan made their way to Grayson's observatory, knowing it was their best chance to make sense of what was happening. When they arrived, Grayson was already poring over ancient star maps and data collected from intercepted alien signals. "You've seen them, haven't you?" he asked, his voice grave as Mara and Ethan entered. "They took people from the village," Mara said. "We barely escaped." Grayson nodded. "It's worse than I feared. They're not just here to conquer. They're here to harvest." "Harvest what?" Ethan asked, though he feared the answer. Grayson gestured to the star maps. "Human DNA. Resources. Anything they can use to enhance their empire. They've done this to countless civilizations." But there's hope. He revealed a dusty, ancient artifact, a crystalline device that glowed faintly when touched. This, he said, is the Keystone, a relic of Earth's forgotten past. It's said to activate defenses left by an ancient civilization that once protected this planet. If we can unlock its secrets, we might have a chance. Mara leaned forward, her mind racing. What do we need to do? Grayson hesitated. The Keystone is incomplete. The other pieces are scattered. We need to find them before the aliens destroy everything. The three of them quickly devised a plan. Grayson would use his knowledge to decipher the Keystone's inscriptions, while Mara and Ethan would venture out to locate the missing fragments. Their first lead pointed them to an abandoned military bunker hidden in the nearby mountains, rumored to house artifacts of great power. As the trio prepared to leave, the aliens began deploying ground forces, hulking, biomechanical creatures that prowled the forests and hills. Every moment counted. Stay together, Mara said, gripping a makeshift weapon she had fashioned from spare parts. We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for everyone they've taken. Ethan nodded, his camera now slung across his chest like a badge of courage. Grayson adjusted his glasses, clutching the Keystone like a lifeline. The journey to the bunker would be treacherous, but Mara felt a spark of hope. If they could unlock the Keystone's power, they might stand a chance against the alien overlords. As they set off, the distant glow of the mothership cast an ominous light over the horizon, a grim reminder of the stakes. Humanity's survival depended on their courage, ingenuity, and the secrets hidden in Earth's forgotten past. The forest was a battleground of silence and danger. Biomechanical sentinels patrolled the terrain, their glowing eyes scanning for signs of life. Mara, Ethan, and Professor Grayson navigated the undergrowth, every rustling leaf and snapping twig feeling like a death knell. The path to the abandoned military bunker was treacherous, but their map, a tattered remnant of an old government document, showed the way. The bunker, codenamed Omega Vault, was nestled deep in the mountains and surrounded by defenses long dormant. We'll have to move quickly, Grayson whispered, clutching the Keystone tightly. These machines, they're not just searching for humans. They're searching for any relics tied to Earth's ancient defenses. Mara scanned the area ahead with her handheld device cobbled together from parts scavenged at the observatory. The scanner emitted soft pings, detecting electromagnetic anomalies in the vicinity. If this thing's accurate, there's a concentration of energy about 3 clicks north. That might be our entrance. Ethan, trailing slightly behind, tried to mask his fear. He kept his camera poised, ready to document their journey. Do you think anyone's ever fought back against them and won? Mara glanced at him. Maybe not in our lifetime. But if anyone's going to change that, it's us. As they approached the bunker, the forest gave way to jagged rock formations. The entrance to the Omega Vault was concealed beneath a thick layer of vines and moss, barely visible except for the faint outline of a steel hatch. Grayson knelt, running his fingers over faded symbols etched into the metal. These markings, they're not just military, he murmured. This predates modern history. We're standing on something ancient, something the government tried to bury and forgot about. Mara examined the locking mechanism. It was a hybrid of old-world engineering and technology far beyond their understanding. We're going to need a key. Or a very big explosion, she muttered. Grayson held up the Keystone, aligning its shape with the depression in the hatch. The artifact fit perfectly, emitting a low hum as the hatch began to unlock. Guess that works too, Mara said, stepping back as the door creaked open, revealing a dark stairwell that descended into the mountain. The Omega Vault was a labyrinth of cold, metallic corridors. Flickering lights overhead illuminated walls lined with consoles and monitors that had long since powered down. The air was stale, and every sound echoed ominously. Ethan moved cautiously, his camera's light cutting through the darkness. What is this place? Grayson adjusted his glasses, peering at the consoles. A repository for ancient technologies. The government didn't just stumble upon this. They were trying to harness something they didn't understand. As they moved deeper, the group encountered a massive chamber filled with crystalline structures similar to the Keystone. These crystals pulsed faintly, reacting to their presence. "This is it," Grayson said, his voice filled with awe. "The first fragment." The fragment was embedded in a pedestal at the center of the chamber, glowing with an otherworldly light. But as Mara reached for it, the chamber shuddered. Alarms blared, and the walls lit up with alien glyphs. "We've triggered a defense system," Grayson shouted. "They know we're here." A loud crash reverberated through the bunker as one of the biomechanical sentinels broke through the ceiling, its massive frame illuminated by the pulsing crystals. The creature resembled a metallic predator, with razor-sharp limbs and glowing red eyes that locked onto the group. "Move!" Mara yelled, pulling Ethan behind a console as the sentinel unleashed a barrage of energy bolts. Grayson ducked, clutching the keystone. "We can't leave without the fragment." "I'm working on it," Mara shouted, her hands flying over the controls of a nearby console. She used her scanner to interface with the ancient system, hoping to disable the Sentinel's power source. Ethan, shaking but determined, pulled out a slingshot he had crafted using spare parts from the observatory. It was rudimentary but loaded with small EMP charges Grayson had given him. "I can distract it," Ethan said, loading a charge. Before Mara could protest, he fired. The charge hit the Sentinel square in the chest, disrupting its systems for a moment. "Nice shot," Mara called out, finally managing to shut down the defense system. The Sentinel froze, its glowing eyes dimming. Grayson ran to the pedestal and carefully removed the fragment, which began to resonate with the keystone. The two pieces merged seamlessly, emitting a bright, golden light. "That's one down," Mara said, catching her breath. "How many more to go?" Grayson hesitated. "At least 2. But the signal from this fragment should help us locate the others." Their reprieve was short-lived. As they exited the bunker, they found the forest swarming with alien patrols. Drones buzzed overhead, scanning the ground with their blinding lights. The group had no choice but to move under the cover of darkness, weaving between trees and using the uneven terrain to their advantage. At one point, Ethan stumbled, nearly losing his camera. Mara pulled him up just as a drone passed dangerously close. "Careful, Ethan," she said, her tone softening. "I can't lose you too." They made their way to a hidden cave system Grayson had identified as a potential hideout. Inside, they regrouped, examining the fragment. It was inscribed with strange symbols that seemed to shift and shimmer when observed. "These symbols, they're coordinates," Grayson said. "The next fragment is somewhere far more dangerous." "Define dangerous," Mara said, rubbing her temples. "The ocean," Grayson replied. "An underwater facility hidden off the coast." Mara groaned. "Of course it is. Why would it be easy?" The next leg of their journey required a daring escape from the forest and a trek to the coastline, where they would need to find a way to access the underwater facility. The fragment's light pulsed like a heartbeat, urging them onward. But as they prepared for the next phase of their mission, the alien mothership loomed larger in the sky, its ominous hum a constant reminder of the stakes. Time was running out, and the invaders weren't just hunting them, they were adapting. Mara tightened her grip on her weapon, her resolve hardening. "Whatever it takes," she said. "We'll finish this." In the distance, a new threat emerged, a massive alien transport ship descending toward the coastline, flanked by smaller fighter crafts. The battle for Earth's survival was only just beginning. The coastline stretched endlessly before them, jagged rocks framing the tumultuous waves of the ocean. The alien mothership loomed overhead, casting an ominous shadow across the landscape. Mara, Ethan, and Grayson stood on the precipice, their faces illuminated by the pale glow of the merged keystone fragment in Grayson's hands. "This underwater facility," Grayson said, consulting his handheld map, "is buried beneath what used to be a deep-sea research lab. If the fragment is there, it means the invaders haven't found it yet, or they can't reach it." "Let's hope it's the latter," Mara muttered. "Because we've got enough trouble dealing with what they can reach." The group descended the rocky path to a secluded cove where a derelict research vessel was anchored. Its hull was rusted, and its systems looked decades old, but it was their only chance to reach the facility. The vessel creaked and groaned as they powered it up. Ethan, ever the tinkerer, managed to coax the ancient systems into working order. "Not exactly a luxury yacht," he said, wiping grease from his hands, "but it should get us there." Grayson set the keystone fragment into a slot in the ship's control console. The fragment emitted a soft pulse, and suddenly, the ship's navigation systems sprang to life. "It's guiding us," Grayson said in amazement. "The fragment is linked to the facility. It's like a beacon." As the vessel ventured into deeper waters, the ocean seemed to darken, the waves becoming eerily still. Mara kept her eyes on the horizon, her senses on high alert. "This feels too quiet," she said. Ethan's voice trembled. "Yeah, well, I'm more worried about what's below us than above." Their fears were justified. Moments later, the water around the vessel churned violently, and massive shadows moved beneath the surface. Suddenly, a sleek, biomechanical sea creature emerged, its metallic skin reflecting the faint light from the ship. "It's one of theirs," Grayson said, his voice tight. The creature circled the ship like a predator stalking its prey. Without warning, it lunged, slamming into the hull and rocking the vessel. Mara grabbed a harpoon gun from the ship's supplies. "We can't outrun it," she said, taking aim. "We fight." The battle was chaotic. Mara fired the harpoon, striking the creature's armored hide, but it barely flinched. Ethan scrambled to rig an improvised EMP device using spare parts. "I just need a few more seconds," he shouted. Grayson tried to steady the ship, keeping it from capsizing as the creature struck again. Mara reloaded, aiming for a vulnerable spot near its gills. The second harpoon found its mark, and the creature let out an otherworldly shriek. "Now, Ethan!" Mara yelled. Ethan activated the EMP, and a pulse of energy rippled through the water. The creature convulsed before sinking into the depths, its red eyes dimming. The group barely had time to catch their breath before the ship's navigation systems alerted them to their destination. The underwater facility loomed ahead, a massive structure partially buried in the seabed. Entering the facility was no small feat. The docking bay was sealed, and the group had to use the ship's diving equipment to access a maintenance hatch. Inside, the facility was eerily preserved, with corridors lined with flickering lights and monitors displaying static. "It's like a ghost town," Ethan said, his voice echoing. Grayson studied the layout displayed on a monitor. "The fragment is in the central chamber. But this facility wasn't abandoned, it was evacuated. There's a reason for that." As they navigated the labyrinthine corridors, they encountered remnants of the facility's original inhabitants. Skeletons in tattered uniforms lay slumped against walls, their final moments etched in desperation. Mara clenched her jaw, her determination hardening. "They fought back," she said quietly. "They didn't give up." Their journey was interrupted by a series of tremors that shook the facility. The group hurried to the central chamber, where they found the second fragment suspended in a containment field. "It's here," Grayson said, stepping forward. But before they could retrieve it, the tremors intensified, and the chamber filled with a low, mechanical growl. A towering biomechanical guardian emerged from the shadows, its body bristling with weaponry. "Of course there's a guardian," Mara muttered, drawing her weapon. The battle in the chamber was relentless. The guardian unleashed energy blasts that forced the group to scatter. Mara darted between cover, firing at the creature's joints to slow its movements. Grayson worked on deactivating the containment field, his hands flying over the console. "I need more time," he shouted. Ethan, armed with another improvised EMP, tried to get close enough to deploy it. The Guardian anticipated his move, swiping at him with a massive claw. Mara tackled Ethan out of the way just in time. "Stick to the plan," she yelled. Ethan nodded, circling around the Guardian while Mara provided cover fire. Grayson finally deactivated the containment field, and the fragment fell into his hands, merging with the first piece. The merged fragments emitted a powerful pulse that staggered the Guardian. Ethan seized the opportunity, deploying the EMP directly against its chest. The creature let out a deafening roar before collapsing. With the fragment secured, the group hurried to escape the facility. The tremors had grown more violent, and water began flooding the lower levels. They reached the docking bay, where their vessel awaited, but the damage from the earlier attack made it barely functional. "Can it still float?" Mara asked, her voice urgent. Ethan grimaced. "Float, maybe. Navigate? Not so much." Grayson held up the merged fragments. "We don't need to navigate. These fragments are emitting a signal strong enough to call for reinforcements." Mara raised an eyebrow. "Reinforcements? From where?" Grayson hesitated. "From whatever ancient force built these artifacts." The group boarded the vessel, and Grayson activated the fragments. A beam of golden light shot into the ocean depths, and moments later, the water around them began to glow. Massive, serpentine machines emerged, their designs eerily similar to the fragments. They surrounded the ship, their glowing eyes fixed on the group. "Let's hope they're on our side," Ethan said nervously. The machines began to tow the ship toward the surface, their movements smooth and deliberate. As they breached the waves, the group saw the alien mothership hovering ominously on the horizon. "This isn't over," Mara said, gripping her weapon. "Not by a long shot." The merged fragments pulsed with a new intensity, as if responding to her determination. The final battle was approaching, and humanity's survival would hinge on the choices they made next.